It's such a packed season. There are sort of 5 main in-house shows. The first of those is Educating Rita, which I'm directing with Leanne Best, who many of you may know from the Matchbox and lots of fabulous stage work she's done for us over the years here. And Con O'Neill, who was in Willie Russell's Blood Brother and played Mickey and won an Olivier Award for it, and has gone on to be a great stage, screen, TV actor that's award-winning in so many levels. So it's an extraordinary moment. It's the 35th anniversary of that play, and I'm very privileged to be able to direct it. We've got a new production of Midsummer Night's Dream here at the Everyman, directed by our associate director Nick Bagnall, who is a great director. He's just started with us as an associate, and he's created great productions that have received great reviews at the RSC, the Royal Shakespeare Company, and at Manchester Royal Exchange and the Sheffield Crucible. And he's going to do an anarchic, joyous production, rather in the spirit of Twelfth Night, that opened the Everyman a year ago.
The play represents all the things that we're not allowed to be in our normal everyday lives, study, chatting now, which is the troublemaker and the mischief maker and all those things that are actually essential. And the play unlocks that for us. So we've got these creatures who create, enormous amounts of trouble and mischief. And I think that I feel like that's why the anarchy's in the room for it. And also this theatre, it has a spirit of anarchy about it, and the clue's in the title, it's Everyman, and I feel like we all can relate to wanting to shout and scream a bit and create mischief.
And Everyman are obviously celebrating their first anniversary, aren't they, with the Shakespeare production, so no pressure on yourself.
No, none whatsoever. And also, to do it a year later after Gemma's beautiful production of Twelfth Night, I mean, I don't feel the pressure actually. I feel like it's a challenge that I'm well up for and really excited about, and I do think that, the year after Twelfth Night and the opening of the new Everyman, it feels like the perfect choice actually.
We've also got in our studio a new play by one of our YEP actors who has just graduated from the Young Everyman Playhouse Company, but we discovered that he was also a great playwright, and he's doing a one-man show, and it's a very, very moving piece.
The plot of Cartoonopolis begins with my brother Jack, who is an autistic young lad who has an American accent. He's never been to America before, but he came to me a while back and told me about this world called Cartoonopolis, where he goes into the garden and inhabits this world where he plays loads of different characters. And when he told me about that, that's what I really wanted to write the play about, and kind of our struggle. And the play's plot is about how he comes to terms with his own autism and his kind of struggle in the world, and our struggle as a family, as carers, and our kind of fight to kind of get his acceptance for who he is and who he's becoming. People with disabilities all have their own strengths, and I think it's really, really important that I use Jack as a voice and use his story to help him and other people out there who are struggling, who don't have a voice.
Meanwhile, over at the Everyman, we've got an in-house production it's the centenary of Arthur Miller's birth, and it's a screenplay that was never made because the FBI were demanding that Arthur Miller made changes to it. It was all written in the 50s, in 1951, during the MacArthur kind of witch trials, and Miller refused to change it, so it was never made. And this is the first time anybody will see it in any incarnation. It's being adapted by Ron Hutchinson. It's a co-production with Northampton Theatre, and it's about the docks. It's going to be a huge ensemble piece with some community support in it to get a real story of unionism in the 1950s in America. It is such a rich season. Really, you just need to go online or get to do it justice. I think they're really, that awful cliche, there really is something for everybody in that season.
It started 23 years ago, really. Helen Forrester's a very, very well-known writer and wrote many books, but their most famous one was called Tuppence to Cross the Mersey. And Helen was living in Canada at the time, but going around the world publicising her books. And I was features editor and had dealt with her in the past, and she was coming over, so I thought we'd lay on a literary lunch so she could speak to a group of mainly ladies about her books. And we did it to raise money for the Alder Hey Children's Hospital. And I was telling a friend of mine, good friend of mine, Rob Fenner, who's at the time, 23 years ago, was a young musician then. And he'd got gold records, he'd done all sorts of different things. He's a very talented lad. And I was telling him about it, and he was a sort of rock and roll guy with the leather jacket on and everything. And he said, Helen Forrester, I think she's fantastic. I think her books are really great, which I found strange because I wouldn't have put the two people together really. And he said, I stole a line from her book, Tempest Across the Mersey, where she refers to her father as being like a butterfly caught in the rain. And he said, I thought that's a lovely line. And he'd written a song about it. So I said, give us a tape of the song. He did. Played it. I thought it was great. I still think it's one of my top 10 favourite songs, actually. It's a beautiful song. So I said, well, look, why don't you come along to the lunch, play the song live for her at the end of the lunch? And he said, oh, I don't know about that. I'd be nervous. Now, Rob has played Sydney Opera House to something like 40, 50,000 people, you know. And I was asking him to play for 120 women at lunchtime, but he was nervous. Anyway, he agreed, came along, sang the song, and Helen burst into tears because she was really moved by it. So all that was great, but it's gone so well, and Rob and Helen got on really well, that we decided not to leave it there. So Rob said, come on, let's get in touch with Helen again back in Canada, see if she'll agree to us turning this into a musical play. Basically the story of her life, but he would write the songs for it. He did. He wrote the songs. He turned the book into a script. It took us 3 years to get it on at the Liverpool Empire, and it sold out virtually there. That was in '94, and then 10 years later, a bigger production was put on. Again at the Liverpool Empire, again great success. And it was at the Empire over £2 million at the box office. I'm not saying Rob made £2 million out of it, he didn't. But it was very successful. And now he's decided to turn it into a straight play rather than a musical. Helen Forrester, she came from quite a well-to-do family that came originally from Liverpool. Her father was in the banking business, I think it was, investment business, and they were living down south. There were 6 children, and it was in the 1930s when there was a slump like you'd never seen before. The family changed virtually overnight from being very comfortably off with servants, living a really nice, pleasant, spoiled life, I think Helen would admit, to being virtually penniless. And they came back to Merseyside because there were some relatives here, and they thought they might be able to make a new life for themselves, but they just had no idea what they were walking into. Terrible slum background. The father was very, very well spoken, as the mother was. So he couldn't get the sort of work well, he wasn't trained for the sort of work at all. So they had a really, really tough time, literally starving at times. And Helen was the eldest, so she had to stay at home. The others went to school, she couldn't go to school. And she was naturally, obviously, very bright, but she just didn't have any education and was determined to get on. If she only had tuppence, she would have had enough to get a ferry to cross the river from the other side to where relatives were this side. She felt she could have got help that way, but she didn't have the tuppence to cross the Mersey. That's the song. So it was. It ends up. It sounds terribly sad. It ends up very positive. I'll never forget the opening night of the play at the Empire. We were all very nervous. I wasn't on stage or anything, obviously, but we'd all put a lot of work into actually getting it on stage, so we were very nervy. Helen flew over from Canada for the opening night specially, and she was nervous as well. And I was sat right behind her in the theatre at the Empire, and it was a very, very moving night. And when it came to, again, Butterfly Caught in the Rain, the finale of the show, she burst into tears again. And it was great. There was a standing ovation for it, and it really was very special. She died a few years ago, sadly, but her son is still living in Canada with his family, and he's making a special trip over for when the straight play of it is going to be performed at the Epstein Theatre in Liverpool in March, and he'll be seeing that as well. So I don't know whether he'll burst into tears as well, but it'll be a nice sort of full circle.
Knock, knock.
Password, please.
Armadillo.
Ooh, okay then. Password, please. Chips. Wrong potato. Fries. Okay. Knock, 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 knock.
Who's there?
Password.
Oh, that's the password.
Ruby.
Bing bong!
Password, please.
Bananas.
Group 2. Tropical fruit.
Oh, I'll tell you girls, I'm meant to be out of the 37 years to be clean, that's a record. 37
Basically, we're doing our own twist on Alice in Wonderland. So unlike the traditional Alice, our Alice is a grown-up. She's depressed, she works in the city, she's fed up, and she's obsessed about meeting deadlines and getting her work done. She then gets sucked into Wonderland, which basically is there to chill her out and get her to unwind after a bit of a meltdown. And then she starts to enjoy being in Wonderland and enjoying the adventures that it has to offer. So bit of a twist for a more contemporary audience, we think, intermingled with songs or number of songs, some well-known songs, some less-known songs, and with some quite ambitious choreographed dance routines as well.
The White Rabbit, he's a bit of a crazy character. He kind of pops in and out of the play, and sometimes helps Alice along and sometimes gets really frustrated with her. And he's someone who's obsessed with time, that's the whole thing. He's constantly, as you can see from the costume, he's got little bits of clocks and things all over the place, and he's constantly trying to rush things along, so in that way he helps the play speed up.
I'm playing the caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland. It's a bit all over the place, to be honest. It's kind of about bipolar caterpillar, so it changes its personality every single line, teases Alice, makes Alice really frustrated, kind of plays and messes around with her a bit because it's one of the first characters she meets in Wonderland.
I know the story of Alice in Wonderland, and I know the dodo is an extinct bird, and he feels like he's got the burdens of the world on his shoulders, and is a very melancholy character. But I'm giving him a little bit of fun for this performance. He's going to be quite a big, brash, sort of quiz show host style character who's going to be getting everybody, including the audience, up on their feet and enjoying the show and getting involved and playing some games. And let's just have to wait and see who's going to be the winner.
It's very much about the modern world and about the material world. So we're starting off with very much a sort of a very stark black and white world. And as Alice moves into Wonderland, it becomes really technicoloured and madder and madder. And eventually she starts to embrace it. It's very much mirrors our world today, really, and the fact that everybody's so busy working and you know, and trying to make money, and everybody's so darn serious about everything, you know, and we all get stressed out very, very easily. So yes, it sort of mirrors our real world, and of course the reflection is Wonderland. And as Alice moves through the looking glass, she sees a totally different world, and her eyes are opened by the completely madcap characters that are in there.
It's just completely different from anything that you've seen for Alice in Wonderland and what you're expecting for children. It's going to have massive costumes. It's set in a beautiful location of the Palm House. It's just going to be completely out of this world. We don't know what to expect from it yet, so the audience definitely won't know.
So you should definitely come to see Alice in Wonderland, put on by Bolton Drama Group. It's been on the 17th and the 24th of January. You should definitely come and see it.
Why you should come and see the show? Because you want to enjoy the mystery, the fantasy, the whole story. Bring it home to yourself, bring yourself back to your childhood and come and join us in the Sefton Park Palmhouse, the 17th and the 24th of January.
My name's Layla Gwynn and I'm currently the volunteer administrator for Company of Friends. It was started in 2008 and I know Paul Lafferty was one of the founding members, certainly really important to the beginning of the group. And it's been going from strength to strength since then. They've been doing performances, a couple of performances a year, every year. They've been performing in all sorts of venues. They've been to, this year they went to New York to speak at a conference about learning disabilities. They've performed in the Tate in Liverpool. They performed a piece all about art and costuming. They've performed a couple of times here at the Blackie. They've done Alice, and I think a lot of the pantos happen here because it's a great space for panto. And yeah, they've been going for a very, very long time at this point. So yeah, we're looking to get charity status soon. It's always easier said than done, but we're working on it, and yeah, that would be fantastic if we could get there, because these guys do so much hard work, like a ridiculous amount of hard work.
My name's Paul Goodsey. I'm a director with Company of Friends, which is a theatre company for people with learning disabilities. There are a lot of theatre companies for people with learning disabilities. There was one in Liverpool which is still going, called Wicked Fish, which is very good. Some of the group, a long time in the midst of time, they split up from Wicked Fish, as happens with theatre companies, and they formed their own little company called the Company of Friends, or Company of Friends as it's called now. And they got together because they loved acting, which is a common, it's a very good way of people with learning disabilities expressing themselves creatively, imaginatively, and it's a social thing as well. And they got together, there was about 5 of them, and they said, well, what's our policy? And they formulated a policy which is all are welcome. That's what they said. And we slowly developed that into, on a more serious level, it's about the integration of people with learning disabilities into general society. And drama is a great way of doing that. It's fun. It engages with an audience who might not otherwise meet people with learning disabilities. And it shows what they can do. There tends to be a lot of when you see a lot of shows by people with learning disabilities, the R factor. But we try to promote the wow factor. In the new year, well, we have 2 projects hopefully on the go. My colleague Helena is running a piece called, for the Heritage Lottery, called, I think it's called Our Will at the moment, that's the working title. Helena is John Rand's daughter, and John Rand was crucial in forming the company. In the 70s, I think it was, in the 1970s, he was working for the Home Office, clearing what were called subnormal homes in those days. Terrible term, but it was taking people out of those homes, taking them off drug regimes which were keeping them very suppressed, and getting them into the community. That's where we are now. Helena is carrying on the tradition. She is doing a show about people who were in those homes at one time, based around Olive Mount, which is in Liverpool, in Wavertree, which used to be a workhouse, and then it was a place for where people with learning disabilities in those days used to go. And she's forming a whole story based around a character called Will, who is baptised in church, local church in Wavertree, and then ends up in one of these homes because he has learning disability. And that's sadly what used to happen. People used to put them in homes. And it's about his life. It's a little bit depressing, and we find some of our company members find it a little bit dour. They think they're a happy bunch, and most of them had a pretty good life. So it's delving into the past and seeing what went on in those days to get a sense of what's going to happen in the future. That's one project called Our Will. The second thing is we're hoping to go to the Enniskillen Festival of Beckett and the works of Samuel Beckett. Last year we did a show about Samuel Beckett, based on the works of Samuel Beckett, using none of his text, but it was based on his work, based on his writings. They did a great little show which we're trying to export. We took it to New York last year to a conference. This year we're hoping to take it to Enniskillen, as I said, to the Beckett Festival. Those two things are two big projects. Everything's a big project with Company of Friends. They take a long time to rehearse because they've got learning disabilities. It's hard enough to learn to play anyway for anybody, so it takes a little bit longer. So they tend to be big projects.